Well, welcome back. Happy Thursday to you. This morning we're in Psalm number 62 as we continue looking at a number of Psalms from King David. A number of them so far in this little string have all been lamentations. This one's a little unusual in that while it is a lamentation, it does in fact include praises, it's got worship, it's got a little bit of everything in it. But truth be told, most lamentations ultimately do. If you read them carefully, if you read between the lines, the author is often talking about not only how bad a situation is, the lament, but he's expressing faith in the goodness and greatness of God, praise. He's expressing his hope and intention to continue to worship God once God answers, again, praise. And sometimes it's all about calling on God for who he is, who he's revealed himself to be. Those would also be those kind of things that are either praises or psalms that are sometimes called wisdom psalms. The more we know about God, the more we know who he is, the better we can relate to him. So this morning we're in Psalm number 62. If you're ready, let's go ahead and read. For God alone my soul waits in silence. From him comes my salvation. He alone is my rock and my salvation. My fortress, I shall not be greatly shaken. How long will all of you attack a man to batter him, like a leaning wall or a tottering fence? They only plan to thrust him down from his high position. They take pleasure in falsehood. They bless with their mouths, but inwardly they curse. For God alone, O my soul, wait in silence, for my hope is from him. He only is my rock and my salvation. My fortress, I shall not be shaken. On God rests my salvation and my glory. My mighty rock, my refuge is God. Trust in him at all times, O people. Pour out your heart before him. God is a refuge for us. Those of low estate are but a breath. Those of high estate are a delusion. In the balances they go up. They are together lighter than a breath. Put no trust in extortion. Set no vain hopes on robbery. If riches increase, set not your heart on them. For once God has spoken, twice I have heard this, that power belongs to God, and that to you, O Lord, belongs steadfast love. For you will render to a man according to his work. So again, here's another Psalm of David. Some lament here. He's in trouble. He's complaining about his situation with people attacking him, physically and especially verbally. No specifics here, though, for us to figure out what occasion that he's talking about. Is it King Saul? Is it his son Absalom when he rebelled against him? It's uncertain what the situation might be. That vagueness, that nebulous nature, though, actually helps it become, if you will, even more real for us, more relevant. Because now you don't have to imagine, well, I was never been in that situation. What would that have been like? Now you can read between the lines and apply your situation. God knows what you're thinking. God knows what you're feeling. And God's given you another psalm to help you understand how to respond, how to reflect upon it, how to relate to him better. So let's go through it here real quickly in the next several moments. Notice this moment of praise begins immediately. For God alone, no other God, no other resources, not his riches, not his army, not Joab, nobody else. For God alone, my soul waits in silence. He's waiting on the Lord, the one who can help him. From him comes my salvation. There's a lot of needs David had in his life, a lot of needs you have in yours, but ultimately God is the only answer. So wait on him. Wait in silence. Wait for the salvation to come from the Lord. Verse 2, he alone. Notice that emphasis on alone again. He's my rock. There's that strength again, that high tower. And he's my salvation. He's my hope, my refuge. He's my fortress. And running into the fortress, into the tower. I shall not be greatly shaken. He's not admitting that he's too strong for any problem to bother him. He's not saying he won't be bothered at all. He says, I will not be greatly shaken. I'm not going to be knocked off my feet completely. Now he turns his attention to his opponents. Verse 3. How long will all of you, they're ganging up on David, attack a man to batter him? They're ganging up, worse, in one sense, like a leaning wall and a tottering fence. Now that image doesn't make sense unless you really stop for a second and think about it. How are they battering him like a leaning wall? Think of the fence or the wall falling over. They just keep battering it. They keep coming back. Or a tottering fence is waving and they just keep attacking it, waiting for it to finally fall. The image here is, to use a modern analogy, it's kicking a man while he's down. He's already tottering, he's already leaning, he's already struggling, and they keep piling on. How long are you going to do that, David asks. Here's his response to himself. They only plan to thrust him down from his high position. They don't want the job. They don't want the responsibility. People who go after leaders often only want to complain to hear themselves complain. They wouldn't want the job. They only know how to do it better than the person in it. They only plan to thrust him down from his high position. They take pleasure in falsehood. They're lying. They know it. They don't care. It brings them joy. They bless with their mouths, but inwardly they curse. They're two-faced liars. They butter him up to his face, and then they lie about him behind his back. But God alone, there's that language again in verse 5. Oh, my soul, wait in silence, for my hope is from him. I can't wait on these people. They're not my hope. They're not my friends. They're my enemies. They're trying to kick me when I'm down. But God alone, David says, he's my hope. I'll wait on him in silence. Again, the reference there in verse 6. He only is my rock. There's that language of rock. And he's my salvation. He's my fortress. And because of that, I won't be shaken. Repetition of what we've already seen in verses 1 and 2. He's merely restated it slightly different. He's returning to the chorus, if you will, of this song. On God rests my salvation. Salvation only comes from the Lord. And my glory, all that I am, David says, comes from God. My mighty rock, my refuge is God. He keeps reminding himself and his audience who they are to trust and why. And so verse 8, David now calls on them and us to respond as he has. Trust in him at all times, David says. Not occasionally, not the bad, not just the good, all times. O people, pour out your heart before him. Be honest. Bleed, if you will. God knows. He's waiting to hear from us to admit it. May he be that thing for us that we can pour out and trust him to do so, because as David says in verse 8, God is a refuge for us. He's a sanctuary. Those of low estate, those who are poor and struggle, they're but a breath. Those of high estate, they're a delusion. So it doesn't matter if you're rich, doesn't matter if you're poor, all in the same boat. Interesting use of language here. The word breath is the same word the author of Ecclesiastes uses that we translate in our modern translations either as vanity of vanities, breathlessness of breathlessness, vapor. It's all but a vapor, the writer says. That's these people. The ones of high estate, they're no better. They're a delusion. In the balance as they go, when God puts them in the balance, they're so light, they're so irrelevant that they go up. They are together, both the rich and the poor, the strong and the weak. Together, they're lighter than a breath. So they're like that meaningless vapor. So put no trust in extortion. Don't worry about those evil people. They're nothing. They're set no vain hopes on robbery. Don't anticipate somehow you're going to steal your way into a better situation. If riches increase, the picture here seems to be a normal, legal, profitable way to increase. Don't set your heart on them. So don't count on the people. Don't count on stuff. Verse 11 and 12. Here's what we're to count on in hard times and in good. Once God has spoken. Twice I've heard this. There's that repetition of once and then twice. We see this sometimes in the Proverbs as well. That power belongs to God. That thing is going to lift us up and save us. That power belongs to God. And that to you, O Lord, belongs steadfast love. The mercy we need, the steadfast, ongoing promise of love and hope. That also comes only from God. But here's the reminder for us. Reminder for us as we think about our enemies, that God one day will bring vengeance and justice. It's not our duty. But also a reminder to us to make sure that we're in the right relationship with God as well. For you will render to a man according to his work. God is watching. Not Santa Claus. He's not making a list and checking it twice, wondering who's been naughty, who's been nice. But it's a warning to us. It's a warning to those that we're attacking. It's a warning to those who are attacking us. God's watching. He's aware. He's taking account, if you will. And he will one day, maybe not yet, but one day, render to us according to our work. Jesus says, by their fruit you'll know them. Here's David essentially saying the same thing. God is aware. The evil are not going to get away with it forever. Those who are being persecuted, God is aware, and one day he'll rescue them, and he'll give them great blessings and hope in the future for all of eternity. But we need to remember today, now, in light of 2020, in light of the beginning of 2021, God is our hope, not the government, not a president-elect, not the past president, Not the cabinet, not the Congress, not the Supreme Court, not our doctors, not our health, not our wealth. God is our only hope. He's watching. He's the one who can rescue us. He's the one aware of our situation. And he's also the one to one day we must give an account. So as you live in faith. Be honest with God. Admit your needs as well as your sins. And then live your faith out so that he and anyone else one watching can see what it is you believe as they see what it is that you do.